Hello, it's been a long time and I finally have something I can use as a studio microphone again. But I'm excited to be back with you now. I'm on semester break from university at the moment and I've been very, very busy with that university degree. So this is the second drawing of my two kids spread. I found some wonderful photos, reference photos to use on Pinterest, and I've changed them up a bit here and there. And I just drew them one day. That was quite a while ago, so the drawings have been done for really quite a while, and I really enjoyed doing them. The first one you've already seen, predominantly done in inks and watercolors with a lovely little skin of light acrylic over the top to just blend them all together really well. This one I decided to start and do in acrylics from front to back. Now this is sped up about 5.2 times, so it still takes quite a while for me to blend this properly, and I felt that this one actually took less time than the other because the blends were going in better. This is on a Daniel Smith, again, a Daniel Smith watercolor ground, so I've got like a simulated canvas texture going on here, and so it's not a really smooth paper surface for me to paint onto. I end up using more paint, but I kind of like that texture a little bit more, and it makes my blending just that little bit easier because you've already got the texture there to soften your brush strokes. For my underlying flesh colour, I'm using a apple barrel craft paint, and it's called Chair Clair, which is a very pale flesh tone. And in the original photograph, it was a very, very pale flesh tone. That's why my shadows are very, very faint. The shadows are being done in June Beige by Ceramcoat, and I'm blending them in on the page as I go. And I just find that those transitions work better when you go back in with the original base coat after you've put the shadow in and you blend that line in. And I'm just putting in a little bit of white, and I just putting those base colors down to accentuate the curves of the face that you can see there. And these, like, there's literally only been kind of one coat really go down and just a few shadows at this point. And that changes throughout the page. So you'll see me work these same details, like these shadows in the nose a lot. You'll see me work them a lot. And you probably can't see it as well on the video here, but that black, it was a fluid acrylic, golden fluid acrylic black in it, and it really bled. So for the lips, I'm just using a Ceramcoat pink quartz. I use that with some toning colours, so I might throw a tiny bit of red paint into it to make it a deeper pink, or some white paint into it. But that's kind of my base coat for the lips, and I work on the lips a lot. I want them to look as lifelike as possible, and I am really only working off a little black and white photograph. I'm not actually working off a colour photograph here. So you see me leaning over them and working the shadows quite a bit on them. And I thought, oh, I'd like to have slightly pink cheeks. So I'm just gently blending those out. And you'll see me then adding in more of the flesh on top of the pink. Getting ready to do the eyes. I often leave them right till the last, but sometimes I can't help myself and I really got to work into them, a lot. I just really like it. So what I found really interesting about this was that there was a lot of folds and shadows around the face, and they were very dark, and it was like the shadows were deep. So it's not that the child has no neck, or it's not that there was really deep space there. I think number one, the child had really dark hair, and that played a part in that. But the shadows in the photo were just lovely, and it's one of the things that attracted me to that photo as well. They had this curling kind of cloacal rug all around the child's face, and there was these deep shadows in between. So you see, I'm going to go over the face again with that base color, and I am able to use that toning color as well, that really pale June beige color, to just really reinforce those shadows again and smooth out that skin tone. So I think when you're doing a delicate portrait like this, that you need to think about the delicate details, and that means sometimes you'll spend a really long time on the lips, sometimes you'll spend a really long time in the nose, or maybe you'll spend a really long time on all of those very delicate features that you get on the face, because there's not dramatic shadows to play with. There's not really strong features to play with, and so you've got to make those delicate features really sing for you. And I find here, like, I'm working in with the white for the eyes, and I went to put the shadows in, and I ended up making, you can see the white of the eyes is going very grey. Now, sometimes I do this. This was a bit of an accident this time, but sometimes I do this because it allows me to gradually build up the colour and the circular surface of the eye. So I'm just gradually going in with more and more white. But eventually I just need to let those base coats of paint actually dry, and I'll build them up again later even more. And you get those really beautiful luminous eyes, because no eye is just perfectly white. The whites of the eyes are not just perfectly white. In any photo there's always shadows, and because it's a round ball in your head, it catches the light differently at different angles, and you need to be able to capture that. So I'm going in with a golden teal, and I'm just putting those rings in. The eyes here were very unusual. There was such a really white channel all around the pupil. So the pupil, there was dark rings around the pupils and dark rings around the outer irises. And I really wanted to do something quite dramatic with them, and I put a lot of work into them, and I used that, and then I created a Payne's grey out of some different blues and black, and worked the Payne's grey into the whole process. So I'm using a very fine detail brush. That detail brush is really great. I end up using it for the eyebrows, the eyelashes, so I can lay it on its side and make it quite a thick brush, but it does really beautiful fine lines as well. And I cracked it open for this portrait. It was sitting in plastic. Often with my fine liner brushes, they do last, but they don't last as well. Particularly if I'm painting over a Ceramcoat paint, it just ultimately wears away those brushes. You can just see that luminosity really coming into the eyes now. I really like that look. It's a very, I don't know, lifelike look, I think. Using some pink left over from the lips. And the right eye is just slightly misshapen at the moment. The shape's not perfect right, but I just leave those sorts of details to the end. So I'm going back over with the teal here to allow the light to show, not the dark to dominate. And just reworking all of that again. And I thought about using maybe some yellow. So I've got some yellow there, and I've popped that in. Just a hint of the yellow. I originally thought I'd just pencil the eyebrows in, but later on I make a different decision about that. and I was using a watercolor pencil. So now I'm just putting those shadows in of the lower eyelid, and then I'll recreate that white rim because the light always captures that rim. And I use this brush a lot to just really just consolidate all those details of the eyes. For me, the eyes are always like the window to the soul. It sounds very cliched, but for any of my portraits, the first thing I kind of really want you to notice is the eyes, and then notice something else about them. And when I chose these photographs, these children had very large eyes. The way they were photographed, they were almost unnaturally large. I actually didn't take any license to make their eyes any really larger. I might have made the girl in the turban just that little bit, her eyes a little bit longer, but no, not here. And one thing I want to say here is that you need to leave, when you've done a couple of layers, you need to leave them alone. So now I'm letting the paint on the eyes set, and I have been using acrylic all the way. So now I'm just going around and doing other details that I just want to deepen. I want to really make something of them. I'm getting this beautiful luminosity to the skin at the moment, and I want to heighten that. But you have to make sure that before you go any further with each step that you let those layers actually dry. So now I'm going in with the background because I really want to I've worked all over the face there, I really want to so I'm going in with a structure, a Matisse structure Naples yellow, which is one of my favorite colors. That particular shade of Naples yellow is just beautiful and sunny and very pale. And then I'm actually going in with the golden Naples yellow, and you see how much darker that is for the toning color, to put very gentle shadows into the folds. And I'm working those in while the paint is wet, although that structure is drying pretty quickly. So sometimes I have to go back in with the Turner's yellow, the golden Naples, and then go and re-pop that in, blend the line back in with some more of the structure, Matisse structure. It comes out pretty quickly, and I'm able to work the shadows in pretty quickly. There's not heaps and heaps of shadows, and actually in the original picture, it was a very textured kind of thing. I could have really used collage for this, and that probably would have created a lot more depth. And I could have really accentuated all the folds by creating tears in the shadows. But the trick to doing these sorts of shadows is to make sure that your outer line that you're painting, so what is painted with the tip, is the sharp edge, and then the body of the brush blends that sharp edge in. They need to be in the right direction, so you need to get your shadows in the right direction. So if the light's hitting the face straight away, then there's going to be shadows behind other things. And if you've got little folds and little flaps folding over, then you need to make sure that those shades are all that shading is all directional and that it works well. And otherwise, your brain thinks, oh, there's something wrong with this photo. There's compositionally, there's something wrong with it. So you can see those shadows radiate outward from the face. And I'll keep playing with that to a degree. There was a lot of shiny parts to those eyes. So you're like, oh my goodness, you've worked so hard on those eyes and now you're just going to paint white shiny bits all over them. But you have to do the underneath to make it believable. So now I'm actually putting eyelashes in, and this is something that a lot of people that are beginning with portraits or just starting faces, they always struggle with. So the idea is to bend the brush over, and I always turn mine over because I'm right side dominant and I don't want my eyelashes to look odd. So this one, you could see the lashes hanging down in the inside, so that was unusual for me. I don't normally do that. But I lay the brush down and then flick it out. So I lay the brush down for the thicker root of the hair, and then I brush it out and flick it with the tip, and that gives me that kind of lifelike brush. I'd use this brush first. Often I put lashes in with a pencil and then I might just accentuate them with the brush, but this brush is just perfect for that. And I was very happy with those details, but I will go back in and play around with them. So I'm just making those shadows a little bit darker on the outer edges of the shadows. I really want to make them stand out. You can see I go over the pencil now with the brush, doing the same thing that I did with the lashes, but allowing my strokes to just be that little bit thicker. And putting that shadow in. It was a very unusual little pressed in mouth. The top lip was significantly smaller than the bottom in the child. And this is actually a little boy, so I find it interesting. You could almost think it would be either or. And the pink was the natural pink of the lips. It was really interesting. It was beautiful. It was a black and white photo, but you could tell that the lips were really quite coloured with no makeup on. They just had a natural. Some people have these beautiful pink, naturally pink lips. And as a child, I think that's accentuated. And they blur out and become more or less featured as you get older. So we're coming to the end. I'm pretty happy with this. The only thing I did off camera was just add in a little bit of mustard yellow just around the eyes, just to accentuate those little creases, folds of the skin around the eyes and the nose. And I fix up the eye here. I sign my name. I'm going to fix up that shape of the eye with white. You'll see that's probably one of the last things I do. And put some little hairs, scrabbly little hairs in. And thank you very much for watching. It's so good to be back with you and to creating my own art. You can see that I've grown a little bit over the semester and I'm going for more of a realism here. Ciao for now. Learn something new today. It keeps you young. And I hope to see you again soon.